Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, ATL Day Ones mock draft part 2 is locked and loaded, baby.
And every Hawk had one job in Beantown. And Jarvis, it looks like everybody, including number 11, understood the assignment.
And last but not least, and for the culture, hey guys, I was wrong about the Hawks, and that's okay. We'll talk about all that next right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start off by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, really appreciate you in advance for a 5-star review. Go ahead and do that as you go along and download this show. It is ATL Day Ones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. But T, when we think about, the ATL Day Ones mock draft and how big of a deal it is and how everybody's been clamoring for it, and the Atlanta Falcons, Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith were even talking about it yesterday in their I'm kidding, folks. I'm kidding. But, hey, they should take a look at it because we've done our research and we've checked this thing out. And, yesterday we started off with the first 7th round pick, and both 7th round picks, and the pick 113 in the 4th round. If you want to know who those are, make sure you go ahead and check out yesterday's episode. It is right there for you. But T, we got to start off with this right now, right? So the pick number 110 in the 4th round, Tenitra Batiste picks what you got?
Oh, I'm just going to stay in my happy space and stay on defense.
Absolutely, of course.
And we're going to go with a D lineman who had a lot of promise coming out of high school and still on some level definitely gave the SEC what they wanted in him, but ultimately still may have some untapped potential that if you get him in maybe the 4th round, you might be able to get one of those, as we say, sneaky good late round picks from Terry Fontenot, and that would be your D lineman, Colby Wooden out of Auburn. So this is that guy, you know how we like to say, hey, can we get ourselves a guy like a bull in a china shop when he pins the ears back? That would be him. You know how we love violent folks who have violent intentions? That would be him as well. So he's the kind of guy where, okay, Jarvis, you're not going to necessarily use him as an every down type of D lineman, nor do you need to, because at this point, the Falcons do have an embarrassment of riches, and you never know whom they might be able to pick up rather in that 3rd round or even that 2nd round. And you and I already know we want them to go in the 1st round, but he could definitely bring something to this defense to give them even more depth, if you will. So you talk about him being at least consistent in terms of being a pass rusher who also helps with run defense, right? So if he's that guy who you don't need to rely on every single down, he could definitely be a good guy who could give you maybe not a lot of burst on the edge, Jarvis, but enough of a burst on the edge. And again, he might be a little bit of a project. So therefore, you might be able to get eventually somebody who could have that sneaky good value in that later round.
I seem to see a pick up on a theme, T, here, as far as with the SEC, defensive linemen, battle-tested guys. I'm really smelling you. I'm smelling you, T. And here's the thing. I stayed in the SEC as well. How about this? Wide receiver, Jonathan Mingo, 6'2", 220 out of Ole Miss. He's a guy that kind of caught a lot of people's eye down at the Senior Bowl, caught my eye as well. I think he's a guy that, obviously added to that wide receiver room. And here's the thing when it comes to, finding value in this particular round. It's just like you said, they're not necessarily looking for a starter. I don't believe you're looking for somebody who can contribute on special teams and go out there and be a rotational person as well. So I think that, Jonathan Mingo, I think he kind of checks the box on that. And he also checked the box, not necessarily a power forward, but, a solid point guard, nice size point guard in the NBA. When it comes to staying with the theme of those big body wide receivers, and Jonathan Mingo, he checks the box on that. So I'm going to go with Jonathan Mingo on that one. But as far as the third round team, pick number 75, where we going?
And I'm going to go and follow your lead on wide receiver, but may go a little bit off the beaten path. This is maybe my first pick, or second pick rather, who is not named an SEC player.
Yes.
But that would be, I thought it was interesting because we're looking for somebody who may have had at that kind of that breakout season that tells you, hey, this is a guy who potentially could come in and kind of pick up where he left off in his last year of college eligibility, right? So I looked at a guy, Trey Palmer, out of Nebraska, because because I thought he was interesting just in terms of someone who kind of exploded and had that high productive season kind of that last year. And you're like, okay, if he had this maybe all of his seasons, then we could be talking about a second rounder, maybe even, a late first rounder, if you will. But again, we're talking about vertical skill set, if you will. So for him, he's really high in terms of being able to just really get up there. Another thing, game-changing speed. We're looking at a core in, Drake London. He's a fairly speedy guy, right?
Right.
So you're looking at a core as far as
moves well for his size. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, exactly. So when you look at him and you say, hey, for his size, not too bad, right? But if I look up and down the depth chart, and as we kind of look at the receiver room and the tight end, it's kind of a one and the same type of room. If I kind of look at the depth chart, I'm like, okay, they picked up Scotty Miller, kind of has a little bit of that piece there as well. Everywhere else, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of looking like, okay, where's the speed? Kind of like, okay, where's the burst? And to me, that's where you can probably pick something up for him. The other piece there as well is this: when you start getting into the third and fourth round, you kind of called this out yesterday on a couple of your guys, and I'd call him out for him as well. That same burst, that same speed that I'm talking about is something that you could use on special teams. So I think he might be a guy that Marquise Williams might like as well, where he can be that interchangeable guy, maybe like a Frank Darby started to show himself to be as well. Maybe you can get somebody like a Trey Palmer to be able to do that, but maybe be just a little bit more effective sooner at the wide receiver position, in addition to what he can do on special teams.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I really like that pick, because one of the things that Arthur Smith kind of hinted at throughout the season, after games or during the week, and as far as leading up to practice and leading up to games, is the fact that being able to take the top off of defense, like you have to be able to do that, right? Like you need to have somebody that can do that. Now, Drake London is a guy who can catch over the middle and make those tough catches and contested catches and everything like that, get those 50-50 balls. But you got to have somebody that you can take advantage of when you want to go to your shot play, right? When you want to take a shot downfield and go deep. Kyle Pitts, he can qualify for that, but you want to have somebody who specifically is built to do that, right? And to having that top end speed like that, I think that's going to be something that Arthur Smith definitely taps into. Now, for me, I had to go. I'm tapping into the whole Senior Bowl piece, because we know the Falcons have drafted, I think, at least 10 guys from the Senior Bowl over the past couple of years. So I'm staying with that trend. So at pick number 75, I'm going with cornerback out of South Carolina, Darius Rush. He's a guy that caught my eye down there because he is somebody who one trait that I always look for in cornerbacks is the fact that contested balls, right? Like if you are getting the ball caught on you, I want to know that you're at least going to be right there to make the tackle. Like, because one of the things that is a definite red flag for probably not just me, but everybody else is if you're getting balls caught on you and you're nowhere in the picture, like that is not good. But Darius, he's a guy that if he got beat down in one-on-ones, we know those kind of cater towards the offense as far as in those individual drills. He was always right there. Right there, not necessarily, to be able to make the tackle because they weren't bringing guys to the ground, but coming over the top, swiping it down or breaking on the ball and even get some interceptions as well. So he was a guy that I really thought really stood out. And, to be able to find him in that third round, like you're looking for value. This is the round that like, hey, This is starter world right here. So, hey, this is a situation where he can come in and compete with Jeff Okudah, because nothing's guaranteed with that, because we heard from the press conference yesterday, these guys are going to be competing for a 53-man spot. There's no guarantee, nothing going on once July hits for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, all right, now with pick number 44, T, in the second round, who are you going with?
I mean, did you really think I was not going to stay on defense?
The Tenitra mantra. Come on now. What else will you go?
Now, what I will say, Jarvis, is I did have a little back and forth, so don't be shocked about the same on tomorrow when we reveal our first round pick, right? Our selection at 8 or wherever. But for round 2, and the reason I say that is because I kept going, okay, am I going to go defense and go edge, or am I going to go offense? Because I really haven't spoken on, and I do know that left guard situation is still in flux, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but I kind of yielded to, my inner desire to have a defensive guy. So I went with Thule, and I might mispronounce it, but I bet I get it right if the Falcons.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, I bet I'll get it right.
I know you're talking about.
Falcons draft him. So Thule Tuipolutu. I think I got that right.
Out of USC,
Yeah, out of USC, exactly. So this guy had what you want, Jarvis. You want a guy who's trending up each and every season. So he's the guy who led the nation, 12 and a half sacks last year. Literally, you're talking about 37 QB hurries. And the reason I point that out, are you salivating too? Right?
I'm being extra. Yeah, I'm being extra. Sorry.
No, it's fine, because you look at him, size, versatility. We keep talking about that versatility, right? So if you look at a guy who could be in a starting space, but also could be a rotational guy, you can kind of plug and play him in. And can you imagine if he was already that good, and then he gets to, and I, put kind of quotes around it, if you will, but he gets to be under the tutelage of Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett. I mean, how great can he be? To me, he seems almost like, remember last year when we talked about Arnold Ebiketie and we thought, okay, we're seeing some things, where AK could be that guy, and he still has potential to be that guy, right? But with a little bit more of kind of under the tutelage and maybe one other season under somebody great like a Ryan Nielsen, some really, really good things could happen. So I kind of see he's that same guy. I think my only hesitation slightly was you just never know, because he's edge. You don't know whether or not he's a guy who will actually be there at 44. But on the same token, that I still believe that 8 and 44 are not solidified as far as where the Falcons will land with that second and first pick.
Yeah, that's the thing that that's the beauty of the draft, right? Like, everybody have where they feel like the Falcons should go. We're talking about where we feel the Falcons should go, and I think that in that second round, like, you don't know what's going to happen, because a lot of guys are going to get pushed down. Because guess what? If the quarterbacks run off the board in that top of the first round, it's going to have an effect on what's going on in the second round. That means some quarterbacks may get pushed up. There means some positional guys are going to be moved around. Like, okay, here's the position where, it was a run on quarterbacks, but here's where there's going to be a run on this particular position now that those quarterbacks have started going. So I love the pick, by the way, too, because I think Tui is a guy that I haven't got a chance to check out, but I think now that you brought him up, I'm going to have to go get my eyes on him and see
because you would like all the violence.
Yes. I need that violence, T. We're almost, a little bit more than 24 hours away, so yeah, I'm definitely looking for all the violence I can find. And speaking of violence, T, with the 44th overall pick for your boy, now, I am a guy that has been super tired of this whole round robin of undrafted guys and guys who've moved from tackle to guard. No shade, Elijah Wilkinson, you know what I'm saying? I found a guy that is going to be able to lock in, put a pin on it, and put his pin on it in that left guard spot. And if Drew Dahlman start acting up, he can drop in the center spot as well. I'm going with this center guard out of Minnesota, John Michael Schmitz. This dude, absolutely, I'm going to continue with the Senior Bowl trend till you know how I get down. I see guys that I like, and I just run with them, right? So he was a guy that one-on-ones, I'm talking about locking down. Guys try to bull rush him, snatch, and all that stuff. He's like, nope, I'm still right here with you. You're not going anywhere. So he's got a mean streak in him as well. So, yeah, I love John Michael Schmitz, the center guard out of Minnesota with the 44th overall pick. Now, T, we asked Trey Young to put on a Madison Square Garden type performance. He was in TD Garden, and he was the gardener. We'll talk about next. But first, we got to talk about Built.com because it is the most amazing protein bar you'll probably put your mouth on or put it in your mouth. You know, however you want to say it. You know, I'm going to keep it moving because I'm a 12-year-old at heart. So I'm going to try not to laugh. But, you know, they have all the different flavors that you want and that you're looking for because here's the thing. I've been out here trying to get my life together, try to work on my body and get everything right. So guess what I've been doing? I've been rocking with Built.com because what makes them so good? You know, they are 100% real dark chocolate. That's right, real chocolate from churro to peanut butter brownie and cookies and cream. My favorite is the churro. It is absolutely amazing. You got to try it out. So if you want, you can't wait to get a box. So all you got to do, you know, we've been sending you guys to Built.com for a long time now. Now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club while you can still get your specialty flavors still at Built.com. So yeah, if you're ready right now to go get your bars, go to Walmart and Sam's Club. It is going down.
Jarvis, I don't care how you put it. You can say that Trey Young put on for his city up top. Check. You can say that Trey Young literally was out there being a gardener, or like old school, they used to say, your is grass and I'm the lawnmower. Yep, he was that guy too.
Yep, check.
You can say he was, so I mean, all of it, all check. Of the above works if you are referring to one Trey Young who single-handedly took over the game from the tip. And Jarvis, what I love about it is this. When we talked about one of the things we wanted to see from Trey Young, it wasn't just taking over, but it was being smart and aggressive. And we saw a very smart, aggressive style of play last night to get the Hawks the 119-117 win to force a game 6 to come back here. And so there are two, to me, Jarvis, is a part 1 and a part 2 to this thing, right? Mm-hmm. The part 1 is Trey Young understood the assignment and completed it. Yeah. And part 2 is Shaquille O'Neal would say the others understood the assignments and completed it. Yeah. So, you know, that's kind of where I want to start. And then, of course, there's a part 3 to it as well. But first things first, part 1, Jarvis, give Trey Young all the darn flowers. Because, again, when you set the tone by the first possession and allowing 11 to 12 seconds of the shot clock to go through. So I'm making the point because he did not rush to hit that first 3. But the very first thing he did out of the gate was hit a 3. And that to me set the stage, regardless of the fact that Boston went up by 13 and the Hawks had to battle back for the win. That he set the stage. So 38 points later,
right?
13 assists later, 2 steals later, and the Hawks live another day because Trey Young did exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I really love and appreciate about Trey, because at the end of the day, like, I'm born and raised from Atlanta, like, and I want this team to do well.
Yes.
I understand the last time they had a superstar on their squad, and that was Dominique Wilkins, and they traded him away. And I understand the narrative as far as, oh yeah, the Hawks are going to tear it down, or Trey Young may be on the trading block. I'm not excited. I'm gonna get excited about that type of stuff. I don't know how people, broadcasters feel in this market, but for me, I don't get excited about that type of stuff because I know the history and I know where it comes from. So for me to sit up there and watch that game, I was literally in awe because we talked about what he needed to do, the type of performance that he needed to have with Dejounte Murray being out. And he went out there and did it. And what really got it for me, where I was I just started laughing and I started chuckling to myself. I was like, this is really dope, is when he hit him with the ice tray after he hit that shot. And I was just like, man, I haven't seen that in a long time. Yeah. Trey actually looked like he was having fun,
Yes.
And that's the Trey Young that we need. We need the guy out there having fun, not trying to answer questions and his leadership being questioned and, oh, you the doggone problem. You getting folks fired. I don't want all that. I don't want that drama. And I'm sure he doesn't want it either. So to see him having fun last night and looking at the crowd after he hit that shot and just, yeah, I know it's cold up in this joint. Yeah. I absolutely loved it, and I'm all for it on Thursday when they get ready to start rocking again.
Indeed, indeed. And I love the fact that when we saw that out of him, it was like the entire team didn't sit back and say, oh, okay, we're just going to let Trae win this thing. Like
Yep.
everybody else understood. Yeah, Trae can have a 38.13 assist night, but guess what? You all, and also I want to give him credit for being efficient because a total game of 4 turnovers when there have been games where we've seen him have 5 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Played an efficient game, but the team figured out, oh my goodness, if we're going to win this game, we got to do something too. We can't just stand back and watch Trae do his thing, John Collins. So he may not have given us
shout out,
double.
Respect, my brother.
Exactly. But you got to give him so much credit for also having an efficient night because it wasn't just 22 points, Jarvis, but it was 9 of 18 from the field. It was 4 of 9 from 3. So again, that is smart basketball. That's the smart basketball that we needed to see from him. Also, Bogdanovich, because we didn't know if Quinn Snyder was going to go, quote unquote, kind of small ball and kind of stick with a shooting guard in that space, or if he was going to go kind of the 3 forward style. We didn't really know what he was going to do. Decided to go with Bogey, and Bogey delivered just enough in the 18 points. Got 5 assists, 2 blocks. 2 blocks. Yeah. And the reason I mentioned that is because you can look down that entire...
He can D up when he wants to.
He will D up when he wants to or when you need him to. And so you look down that whole 9-man rotation, Jarvis, whether you're looking under rebounds, steals, blocks, whatever the case may be, that was also to me very encouraging to be able to look down the entire rotation and see that each person contributed 2 ways, because the 2-way play, I don't care if it was just a 2-point win, the 2-way play puts you in position to even come back from that deficit and win the game.
Yeah, that's the thing, like when you're talking about coming back from a deficit, right? Because it seemed like Boston was in control of this game from the most part, you know, and then the Hawks were just kind of sticking around, not letting it get up to 20, you know, 25-point lead or anything, or 30 or whatever. It was just like around 10, 12, 13, and then next thing you know, it started getting down to 8, and then you start down to 6, and then when they hadn't had a lead to when they were up in the second quarter, once they took the lead in the fourth quarter. So just the resiliency that this team played with and showed, I think it was refreshing. It was refreshing to really watch. And then I just love how the whole scheme aspect of the game, as far as Quinn Snyder with playing around with different lineups and having Jalen Johnson in there with Onyeka Okongwu and doggone Clint Capella. Like, that was something to see. And I was just like, oh, okay, this is how you working it. And then having Jalen Johnson defended on the perimeter. And I'm just like, whoa, what is this? So I was like, okay.
Very necessary.
Yes, very necessary. That's the perfect way to put it. So I think that playing around with the matchups, Trae doing exactly what he was called to do, which is lead this doggone team and go out there and get a dub on the road in the Garden. The Gardener was in the building, T, and I absolutely loved it.
And what you just said is why I think they still have very much a chance on Thursday when Dejounte Murray is reinserted in the lineup, because Quinn Snyder showed even last night how he really does have the touch when it comes to not just realizing that, okay, we need to do some switches, I need to play around or tinker around with this rotation, but being able to do it in the moment. It reminded me, his tinkering around with the lineups last night actually reminded me of something that he did in game 3, and even in the loss in game 4, by the way, there were moments where he immediately called a timeout, right? Didn't wait for the lead to get out of hand for the Celtics, or didn't wait for the Hawks lead to be whittled down to nothing. He called timeouts in a timely manner, and I feel like being able to do that, being able to see who's the hot hand or where do I need better 2-way play, that's how he's going to make, to me, an easy reinsertion of Dejounte Murray into the lineup. And think about it. Even in these games, you know, these games in this playoff series, although the first 2 games kind of mirrored what it looked like in the regular season where you had the 13-point wins by the Celtics, the one constant, taking nothing away from what Trae did in game 5, but the one constant has been Dejounte Murray.
Right.
So I'm confident that Quinn Snyder is going to find a way to get him back involved in the right way and in the right spaces and places to potentially force a game 7.
Yeah, and I think that, and Trae kind of has to come with the same mindset too, right? When you think about, you know, being able to insert himself early on, making sure that, hey, I got my stroke tonight. Let me get going, and then I'm gonna make sure everybody else get involved. And I think that that's not gonna be the thing that we don't have to really necessarily worry about too tough when it comes to, you know, what they have going forward and thinking, okay, DJ, we know you got to get the rock in your hands from time to time, and I think that once you have that, we can get going and making sure that we are where we need to be.
Indeed, and Trey Young had something to say for the South, who had something to say last night, and every dayers, we know you guys got something to say too. So let us know what your thoughts are about the fact that the Hawks forced Game 6, forced this series to come back to Atlanta. We always appreciate all your thoughts, and we hope that you guys will continue to give us feedback on what you think about our mock draft picks. If you have some different thoughts on your mock draft pick, let us know who you think, especially for tomorrow, because we might just insert you into the show and let everybody know what you guys think the Falcons will do, whether they pick at the 8, go up, or go back in the draft. So don't forget, check us out on YouTube, because of course you can see us in all of our draft night glory, or you can check us out wherever you download and listen to your podcasts.
But T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. T, I was wrong about the Atlanta Hawks because, I do my little sports extra appearance from time to time. So I was on there Sunday, and they asked me, because of State Farm Arena being double booked on Thursday, they asked me, should we be concerned that Janet Jackson, the icon, may be moved or may have to move to a Friday because of the Hawks coming back to Atlanta in their series against the Boston Celtics. And, of course, I joked about it and said, there's no worries. As a matter of fact, you can go and get you some hotel rooms and book. Don't even worry about getting insurance, T. So, I hope y'all didn't listen to me because, hey, our players mess up sometime too. So, but yeah, I think, T, the way Trae Young played, I'm so glad that I was wrong. And then, hey, you move into a Friday, all you got to do now is just deal with all that Taylor Swift traffic, T.
Man, I tell you, I was like, and the funny thing is, when I first heard the story, which kind of came out yesterday about the possibilities, like, oh gosh, like what if the Hawks do the impossible, win Game 5 and come back for Game 6? What in the world are they going to do with an icon? And it's like, well, one icon gets bumped for an icon in training. That is the way that kind of goes. And unfortunately, I don't know who made that gaffe at State Farm Arena, because you should never, ever, 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 ever assume anything when it comes to sports. I mean, until you play the game, you don't know what's going to happen. So to me, that was like, wow, I can't believe anybody actually made that gaffe. But it happened. It happened. And I got a text from a friend of mine last night. First thing she said was, hey, sis, so about that Janet Jackson concert, now that the Hawks have won, what do you think is going to happen? And I was like, oh, the word just dropped. That concert's moving to Friday. Because what you can't do, it's tough, because I'm sure.
Where you gonna play?
You can move concerts. Concerts have been rescheduled since the beginning of time.
Yes.
A playoff game in any league, Jarvis, correct me if I'm wrong, other than a natural disaster, which may have moved a Super Bowl, but even that was moved months ahead of time, right? Or an all-star game because of political situations a couple of years ago. But in general, sports events don't get bumped. So when that game was won, I knew, I was like, oh, so I wonder if folks are going to see Janet Friday or Saturday, because what you won't do is see her at State Farm Thursday. But shout out to Jarvis for being a big enough man to say he was wrong. And listen, none of us can throw him under the bus, because when we saw what Boston was able to do, or what Boston did in Game 5, the thought was, wow, the Hawks gave their best shot. The Hawks really did give like a body blow to the Celtics, and they still won. So I cannot blame you for having that thought process. But yes, as those who cover local sports and those who are always rooting for good things to happen to our local sports teams, this is one of those swords that I've fallen on with Jarvis, and saying I am glad that we didn't get it right on that one, right?
Absolutely. Yes, no doubt. I mean, because when you think about, how, we cover these teams, like we're invested in these boys. We invested in these young men out here giving it of themselves to not only the city, but, hey, to go out there and, and perform well, because they're professionals. That's what they want to do. So we understand that, and everything. Speaking of performing well, T, we got to acknowledge these guys before we get up out of here. Nephew Ronnie. and Mr. Ozzy Albies, so that'll make him Neff as well. So the two nephews, they did their thing last night. Ozzy Albies 2 home runs, and Ronald Acuna up here setting the table like he normally does.
Yes. Boy, it was a family affair because you always call Uncle Charlie Morton saying, hey, if it's Unc again, that's a good thing. So he gave his all in 7 innings last night, striking out 9. But like you said, the first cousins / the nephews, Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ozzy Albies. I mean,
going through the family tree here, right? For the culture.
Right. They are so for the culture. Oh my God. They are
absolutely
so for the culture. Whenever you and I get an opportunity to talk about them doing some of the things they're doing, Ronald Acuna Jr., it was so funny because our guy Grant McCauley said yesterday morning, this was before game 2, he was talking about on 92.9 how we started the season thinking 30-30 for Ronald Acuna. Then we started thinking, no, he's back to 110%. Maybe he's 40-40. McCauley said, could this guy even be like threatening 50-50? And then Ozzy Albies was always a part of that conversation about whether or not you could have 3, 4, 5 Braves getting to 30-30 or maybe even touching 40-40. So yeah, just shout out to seeing them have all the fun in the world and doing it just like you would do for the culture because they're just dear friend. And we love to hear it and love to see it.
We love everybody that rocking with the Atlanta with the A. I almost said something now. I did. I did just say the A. Hey, I'm warming up to it, because I know how people identify with my city, and we appreciate you guys identifying with us and make it ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, people who come here and listen to us Monday through Friday, they call everydayers. Why don't you join the club? Guess what? And I'm going to start doing a little something special for the everydayers. How about this? Do you want a red Solo cup? Yes, if you want a red Solo cup, hit up atlday1s@gmail.com and I'll send you a red Solo cup. All you got to do is comment everydayers and send your contact info, and I will send you an ATL Day Ones official everydayer red Solo cup. So yeah, how about that on a good Wednesday on a hump day? So guys, if you don't do anything else today, I want to make sure that you share love, show love, and most importantly, come back tomorrow for the ATL Day Ones Part 3, and we'll tell you exactly who will we pick at the number 8 overall pick. And last but not least, spread love.